So on Molokai right now, what kind of economic development is going on right now? I mean, so
Right now,
what's going on?
Well, on Molokai, the history of Molokai, we've had all these big companies come to Molokai and do monocropping and agricultural,
Monsanto has a facility out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
We started first with sugar on Molokai, and the first guys came was they did train tracks. They put a huge pump, 25 million gallons a day pump, and I think it took all of 6 months where they just ruined our whole aquifer. Salt started coming up, so the whole sugar industry went down. Then they went to ranching, and they had this huge ranch on Molokai, and they just killed the land. The forest disappeared on Mauna Loa. I mean, all the mud went into our fish ponds. We had to dig 6 feet to find the top of the wall of the largest fish pond on the island of Molokai, which was like 500-acre fish pond. So huge erosion problems. Then came pineapple, and they put plastic. I mean, you cannot dig the ground without all this plastic, because they had to cover all the weeds with plastic every year after year after year. And they use DDT and all kinds of bad chemical that we can't use anymore. It's all in our soil. And then they just got cheaper labor in South America, and they left. And they left us with this mess. Then comes the corn companies now. And it's the same scheme. Monoculture, big plantation, hire everybody. And this is the worst I've ever seen it all my life on Molokai. Is when we had pineapple, it takes 4 years, maybe even 5 years before you replow the land, because you get ratoon crop after ratoon crop. You don't have to keep plowing the land. These guys now, they plow the land 4 times a year. So it's like you're just chopping up that soil, and you're going over the soil gets finer and finer. And Molokai, they want to put windmills because we got a lot of wind. So now when you drive through Olehua, you have to roll up your windows.
You got a lot of dust.
Oh man, I mean, it's
Dust bowl?
I can't see Mauna Loa Mountain because dust. So it's like they're going to create a dust bowl. They're going to ruin our lands for profit because they keep plowing it and plowing it and plowing it. And it happened in the 30s in America. I mean, there's a huge history of what not to do with your land. And then the farmers are chemical companies. So using chemicals is second nature. And they make a lot of money out of selling chemicals. So the seeds that they produce, we cannot eat. They're just seeds that they export, and they send it to Wyoming or Nebraska or wherever, and then they just plant thousands and thousands of acres with these seeds. So we're not growing any food on Molokai. And that dust is, it's when it rains, that same dust, soil, goes from the top of Pala'au down into our reefs. I mean, and then when the dust goes up, not all of it comes back down. The warm air keeps a lot of the chemicals and stuff that's in the dust up there. And then they move over our mountaintops, and then precipitation. And then sooner or later we're going to be seeing all these chemicals in our water system, because it's a cycle that's going on. So for us, it's the huge bad elephant in the room, and we don't know what to do about it because it's the largest employer on Molokai right now.
You guys are stuck.
We're pretty much stuck.
I recall hearing you tell a story once about crop spraying or something like that, and that you were present or witnessing stuff like that?
When my boys are 30 years old now, and they're huge, but when they were in elementary school, that cornfield is still there, in fact. They were spraying the fields in the mornings when I dropped my kids off to school. And I was sitting in the car, and I watched this helicopter come down and spray the field next to the school. and all the mist came right over where our kids were all out preschool running around in the yard. And it covered the workers on the cornfield, and then it covered my kids. And I said, wow. And so I followed the helicopter, and they landed down the street, and they started reloading the helicopter. And the guys who were reloading had white suits with masks.
Hazmats.
Yeah, and they were loading these chemicals into the helicopter. And I went up to the helicopter driver and I says, hey, you cannot spray my kids anymore. And he said, oh no, this stuff is safe. I says, well, I'll believe you if you drink just a teaspoon right now in front of me, I'll back off. He says, oh, I can't do that. And I said, well, if you go back up in your helicopter and you spray my kids one more time, please know I'll be right there in the field with a huge rock and I'm going to knock your ass out of the sky. I was so mad. So he didn't go back in the helicopter. And cops came to my door, knocked on my door. Mr. Ritte, we have terroristic threatening charges pending against you. So that was my first introduction to these chemicals. And that always stays with me because these companies, I don't know how they think. Maybe they're so disconnected to the communities that when they're making decisions, and then our government, they don't do anything to protect them. That's the thing that scares me is Department of Health, they got their hands tied for one reason or another. Farming activities are all exempt from a lot of governmental controls that protect our environment. When you're a farmer, you're exempt from, you can plow as many fields as you like, you can do all kinds of things. And then now we got these new chemical companies that are involved. They're so big and they're so smart that they've been able to control the top of our government. And then once they set all of the parameters over how you control these companies, it ends up with no control whatsoever. The state says, oh no, this is a federal problem. The county says, oh no, this is a state problem. And then they pass the buck to the top, and the top is like a revolving door of who works for Monsanto and who works for the government. They just switch around every other year. So there is no controls over this thing. So I get really, really scared. And that's why I've taken a position statewide to fight GMOs. I'm not doing a lot of fighting on Molokai because we've had some big fights over development. And we're really fighting with our own family all the time. Mm-hmm. So I decided to take the fight to the state level. And I've been coming to Oahu a lot. And the solution to all of this is labeling. If we want to control this thing that is uncontrollable right now because the government is refusing to control it, then the power has to go back into the hands of the consumer. Right now the power is in the hand of the government. So the government sits there and all of these chemical companies visit them every day and they're okay with the situation. Okay, everything is fine. You guys are going to help our economy. You're going to create jobs. You're going to hold up the whole agriculture community. And then, we're saying, whoa, wait a minute. So we go over there and say, let's pass this bill and put labels on these things. We couldn't get a hearing. We couldn't even get first base.
They gave you the stall. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was, they worse than stall, they just cut our line completely. And it was very humiliating, it's like we couldn't even talk about our safety. We couldn't even talk about what we saw as community members being our problem. So we're out now organizing to get ready for next year. And the more we give information out, the more our legislators and the people understand how dangerous this thing is. And that the more people realize that the power should be in our hands, the consumer, not in the government's hand. So instead of Monsanto and all those guys going to the government to allow them to do things, if you label it, they have to come to us and tell us how great their product is. Otherwise, we're not going to buy it. And if we don't buy it, then there's no reason for them to grow it. So it's a simple solution to just transfer the power from the government to the consumer, which is as American as you can get, right? I mean, everybody.
Maybe in the past.
That's right. Things have been changing. Our farmers are now chemical companies, and our government now is not listening to us. So the proof of this thing is going to come whether or not there's like 90% of the people out there saying we want labeling. We have the right to know. I want to know what I'm feeding my kids. I mean, it's like, duh, that's so American. That's so democratic. I mean, that's part of our system. And the government is saying no. So it's like...
And you know why. Well, actually, you do know why, right?
I know why.
Okay.
And we cannot allow that. It's like we cannot allow our government to be representing and protecting corporations. They have to be listening to us. So I'm very naive in all this kind of stuff. I believe that we can, come next year, have enough people to convince the politicians that we should have labeling. I'm really convinced of that because the politicians are making huge mistakes.
And huge money. They're making huge
They're
money.
making good money out of this whole thing, but they're making big mistakes. When they start attacking our environmental controls, and when they start not listening to the people who want to protect their own families, they're going to start walking on thin ice. I see some of that going on right now. People are, what's your position on GMOs? And they go, well, what's that? It's like, well, you better learn because I ain't voting for you if you're not supportive of labeling or whatever. So it's becoming part of the political system right now. And while I'm running for OHA, that's one of my issues. Is this is a full-on aloha aina topic. It's like this is the elephant. They're putting poison in our forest through the dust. Everything's going on the reef. They're creating dust bowls. I mean, it's like these are the biggest chemical companies in the world. They're all in Hawaii. This is the biggest problem for us as Hawaiians. If our kuleana is to take care of Haloa, and if Haloa represents, all of our nature and the things that we're supposed to take care of in Malama, then this is an issue that we need to take leadership in. We need to stand up and say our ole to what these guys are doing, to our children and to the land. So for me, it's a huge issue. I mean, this is my number one issue right now, is protecting us from these companies because they're so huge. The impact is going to be enormous on this state.
Already is. So my understanding is that both Kamehameha Schools and Office of Hawaiian Affairs have, in the past maybe, but I think still, no policy with regard to the use of their land or whatever lands they have control of for growing GMO products. And what do you think?
True.
That's true, right?
That's absolutely true, but the state has no policies. The county has no policies. The federal government has no policies. Kamehameha School has no policies. Nobody has policies. That's like, I can't believe the situation. So who's going to set the example? For me, Kamehameha School should be the first one to stand up and stop coming up with excuses, which they're doing now about why, they can't break their lease or whatever, and stand up and say what you're saying in your master plan, which is you're stewards of the land.
Except where money is concerned.
Well, I didn't see that part. All I saw was we're stewards of the land. So they're saying, look, all of this land, we're stewards of all of this land. And we say, no, but look over here by Haleiwa. You got 1,000 acres that you're killing the land, killing our people, bad stuff. No, but look at all of this we're doing over here. And we say, no, look at this over here in Haleiwa. So they're playing this, it's like, come on, deal with this. Show us that your master plan really is a master plan for all of your lands and not just for this part of the land while you can go over here and do all these bad things on this part of it. You cannot talk out of two sides of your mouth. We need leadership in the Hawaiian community, and we're trying to hope that Kamehameha School is going to set the example. You go to Kauai, the things are so bad over there, there's lawsuits, and the landowners are being sued as well as the chemical companies who are leasing the lands. So Kamehameha Schools can expect to have lawsuits against them the same way that's happening on Kauai and all over the world. So it's like they should take that cancerous growth or that kakio and make their whole place stewards of the land, which is what their mantra is. And that's a really good position to take. So I'm hoping that's going to happen, but it hasn't happened. And all the responses have been like, they're looking for all the excuses, which is really bad excuses about why they're going to keep that kakio on their land.
So, okay, so you don't have really, none of us have any control over what Kamehameha Schools does. But so, as a trustee, I'll just ask you straight out, are you intending to help develop, if you win, some rules about how land is developed, how it's used?
I'll be knocking on the door almost every day. And you start from the bottom and talk to the staff, and then you work your way up to the bosses, and then you go to the CEO, and hopefully you get all the way up to the board where it makes policies. They have to, they can't allow this to happen. I mean, it's suicidal for us to allow this kind of stuff to happen. We only got so much land, and it doesn't make any sense. These guys are not growing food, they're growing exports. So everything don't make sense, It's like, I can't understand how profit can make everybody blind, It's like, come on guys, let's put some Hawaiian values and morals and long-term visions into your decision making. Let's show some leadership here.
Then do you think that's going to happen anytime soon? Has that happened with the trustees that are presently?
No, I haven't seen any good actions happening. There's glimmers of hope